Hello, everyone. How are the goals? Fine, thank you.
Oh my god!
I wish I made a loading screen.
Why are you talking about your game?
Loading screen is not what it seems. Oh, loading screens. Loading screens have always been a key element in video games. These are mainly used to load all possible assets in order to have a good performance when you're playing. The loading screen is used at the beginning of the game, but it is also constantly used in the game when it's changing essence or adding new assets on the screen. Being an important aspect that varies depending on the game, but the reality is that the loading screen does not what it seems. In this video, I will show you the hidden aspect that show how the loading screen actually works. Fake loading screen. There are games in which the loading screen does not really load the asset in real time. It is a simple visual element, so the player has to wait at the screen. But what is really happening is nothing. The screen is only giving you time to the game to load the asset. But the screen is not loading or calculating anything. It is just giving the impression that it's doing so while the assets are loading without the certainty that they really loaded. How do they trick the player? Using a false UI and having the loading bar have a varied and not constant movement to give the sensation of pressing loading. And there are even cases in which there are no loading bar or numbers at all, just a rotating image or a loading text in a loop to successfully confuse the player. Which is why always in this type of loading screens when finished not all the assets are loaded, but to be able to play. But what happens when a loading screen turns out to be real? Real loading screen. I thought there were loading screens that were real and accurate, but no, it was a trick too. In my game, my Golden Heaven, I made a loading screen that is relatively real. I say related because it still has a trick of pretending to load. Even it loads on asset. In the code, I use content provider, which has a preload asset function that I thought it worked to preload asset with ID when entering the game. When I implemented this function to a large number of assets for the loading screen, it got me a serious problem. It stuck halfway and the bar didn't progress. This is because there are certain assets that take a long time to load or are directly impossible to load due to various factors, which prevent it from finishing loading. That is where the trick comes in. When the loading code doesn't advance for some reason, it's simple to stop and skip it after continuous loading the other asset. It is where the trick comes in. Since by doing this constantly, not all the assets are loaded properly and the load time becomes random, making it seem accurate. And that even though it actually loads in real time. It also has a varied and random movement in a certain part of the load bar. Taking this into account, are there more elements of this system that are not what they seem? 100% of the assets are not loaded. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, in games there is the main loading screen and load screen in game between the scenes change. But in the case of Roblox games, usually only one loading screen is used in most games, except for experience with matchmaking or round systems. So if only one screen is frequently used, are all the assets loaded on that single loading screen? The simple answer is no. If all assets of game were loaded, it would take a lot of time to load them all. Not to mention that the problem of preload constantly stopping the process, it will be quite an inconvenience. The reality of these screens is that they only load a certain percentage of the game, but never all the assets. In my Golden Heaven, for example, I don't load all the assets. I have some folders with animation and sounds. Those folders are the only ones that I load on the screen. I really don't load meshes or textures because I prefer them to load at certain moments of the game. Because if everything was loaded on a single screen, it would be problematic. And to avoid having to wait for everything to load, there is the skip button. And how does that work?
Actually.
Shut up, nerd. Skip button. As the name indicates, it only skips the loading screen to go directly to the game. How does this work? Although it may not seem like it, it does fulfill its role, but not in the way you think. In the case of my game, when you click the skip button, it activates a bool value that breaks the 4 hidden pairs that loads the asset and complete the bar. After breaking the loop, the bar advances automatically and modifies the progress text, and then closes the screen and goes to the game. Does the loading screen process stop? Yes. Do the asset stop loading? No. What? Yeah, since nothing prevents you from breaking the bar loop, but leaving the content provider preload intact in a separate function or loop. And this allows that despite skipping on the screen, it is still continue to load some more assets, so that the performance is sufficient to start your bizarre... Wait, that was not like that. Okay, so let's go again. To start in this golden heaven. Yeah, it's much better that way. Loading conclusion, completed. There are several types of loading screen, from the fake loading and the reliably real. In those screens, you don't load all the assets of the game, only a certain percentage, and even if you use the skip button, it will continue to load a bit of the asset, since even though not everything is loaded, and it isn't necessary to load them, they will always be there, preloading with content provider to give you a good performance and decent optimization while you play the game. The loading screen is essential in a game, and there are several ways to implement it, but it all depends only by the player, if he wants to skip or wants to see a nice hair attack reaching his destiny. I hope you liked the video, and don't forget that if you're interested in a loading screen that is relatedly real, you can join the Discord server and get information about that relatedly bizarre game. I'm Tamiro, and see you next time.
Oh my god!